Hello, all, and welcome to Frame by Frame, where we take a closer look at iconic film scenes. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
In this episode, we will be discussing a scene from Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you want to watch this scene, click on the link in our show notes. You can watch the scene, then come back and listen to some of our thoughts and analyses of what happens in this Boulder chase scene. So, Sarah, do you want to share a brief description of what happens in this Boulder chase scene?
Yes, in this scene, Indiana is searching after an artifact, and he has to go through a series of traps in order to get the artifact. And just when he thinks he has gotten out of there scot-free, we learn that everything has gone wrong, and he is chased by a number of things, including a giant boulder. So we have to watch our hero figure out a way to
Run for his life.
It's intense.
Run. For his life. Okay, well, let's dive in. We're going to just deep dive into this really fun scene, honestly. So, Sarah, what makes this Boulder chase scene from Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark so iconic to you?
So I am going to maybe bring something to the table that I don't think we've talked about in a frame by frame before. But I think part of what makes this scene so iconic to me is actually a ride that I went on, I believe at Disneyland, like a million years ago as a child. I don't know if it's still there, but there was an Indiana Jones ride, I think at Disneyland. And I very vividly remember going on that ride as a kid. And it felt as though you were being chased by a giant boulder. And I don't know how they do that, what wizardry they did at that theme park to make it feel so like visceral and like you were there. But when I rewatched Raiders of the Lost Ark recently, I immediately was back there to when I was a kid and being so like, oh my gosh, the boulder's gonna get us. And so I've just been thinking about the way that things like theme parks help make an iconic scene like this, because it was already iconic. That's why they would make it into a ride. That helps that staying power continue, years and years and years after you originally see the movie. So obviously, like, it's a great scene, all of that. But man, the minute that scene started, I was right back there as a kid in that ride. So I thought that was just a really interesting way to think about the way that like commerce and movies can like work together in a really interesting way, and the role that theme parks can play in making these things continue to be iconic and relevant and really like stick in our brains. So yeah, that's my like tangent about the movie. Yes. But I think that really helps solidify this as a really iconic scene. So what about you, Jen? What about this scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark is so iconic to you?
The sound of the boulder barreling down and the fear and the excitement and the adrenaline, I'm taken back to it whenever I think about this scene. It's funny watching this scene again and this movie again, now that we're going to talk about it in frame by frame, because I remember that's the scene being much longer than it actually is, which I think says more about the fact that scene and the action felt so rich and so exciting the first few times that I've seen it, or in my memory, that the scene actually feels much longer, more thrilling, more adrenaline, more tension than it actually happens. It's actually only like a series of, I think I counted like 7 to 10 shots, and then he's out of there, and in my mind, I was like, oh, I thought we were running for a long time. But that just goes to show how impactful the camera angles and the pacing of the way that sequence is edited, that it feels so big and impactful in my mind. So that was really interesting watching this scene again. And I think that visceral, like, full body experience that I feel like I had watching this movie and watching this scene definitely was iconic to me. When we were picking which scene we wanted to do for Raiders of the Lost Ark, this one sprung to mind immediately for both of us. We're like, yes, that one.
And I had the same reaction too. I was like, oh, this is only a few seconds long. Like, I really thought that it lasted for longer. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, it's just a testament to this scene that in our minds, like this is such a big moment and it lasts so
Yeah.
long. And nope, it's over pretty quickly. He gets out of there pretty quickly. But the impact that that boulder has had on us is significant.
The boulder has, yes, made an imprint on our lives. One thing that I found really fascinating this time, now that we're looking at it from the lens of frame by frame and studying what makes that whole sequence so thrilling, is how much the shot construction of the few seconds that happens is so on point and so specific. So I actually like jotted down a bunch of the way that those shots were constructed because I just found it so interesting. So we get to see, obviously, the scene starts with Indy's face in shock, in fear, seeing the boulder barreling towards him. Then we see a shot of the boulder from behind, and we can see how fast it's moving. And I was thinking about how like the relationship between where the camera is and like visual physics makes it seem like, because the boulder is rolling away from us, it feels like it's moving very quickly. And then there's two shots of the boulder with Indy running right in front of it, and we just see the boulder right behind him. Then there's two shots from the side, and we can see the distance of the boulder from him. And then we're back finally with two shots with Indy in front, the boulder right behind him, almost like framing him like in a circle. And I think those shots where Indy's running in front with the boulder behind him are so impactful because we don't know how far that boulder is from behind him. And that creates so much tension. It creates so much adrenaline because we're actually missing information. And I felt that so much more this time around watching. I was like, wait, I don't know how far. Is it inches away? Is it several feet away? I have no idea. And that gap in knowledge, I think, adds to the stakes of the action adrenaline of that short sequence. So the way that that specific shot is framed also makes sense because we're in a literal tunnel underground. But the choice for us to spend so much time with that shot of the boulder rolling, we see Indy running, but we have no idea how far that distance is, I think is so important to this scene working as well as it does.
That's a really great point, and I love how this whole sequence is shot because we're constantly cutting back and forth to get additional information about what's going on. So even before the boulder appears, you know, we're seeing Indy doing his stuff, getting the icon, and then we're constantly shifting back to Alfred Molina's character, who is almost
So great.
reacting like us as the audience in the
Yeah.
shot, because Indy, like, he's keeping it cool. He knows what's going on, kind of, but Alfred Molina's character is just as like clueless and shocked and surprised as us. So I love the way that throughout the entire sequence we're
Mm.
constantly cutting back and forth to give us new information about what's going on.
Mm.
And I think the pacing of those cuts really helps to make it exciting and interesting as we're like on the edge of our seats of like, oh my gosh, is Indy going to get away? And so the editing of this scene really helps increase the tension and the stakes of that moment.
Yeah, it's very much a process scene, which is so fun for us as viewers. We get to see Indy doing his little tests, seeing how those tests result in arrows being shot in the right spots and locations. So we're learning about Indy's competency, but also the looming sense of danger is very real. So that by the time we get to the boulder sequence, that catharsis, that feeling of, okay, we've seen you tee this up and now we get to see it paid off, of like the danger is here and is barreling towards you, is really satisfying. So that's a really great observation around like actually the setup leading up to the boulder sequence is just as vital for that boulder sequence to be so impactful and such an explosive moment for us.
And I love that every time Indy makes progress, then there's a new obstacle for him
Mm,
to have to, I don't,
figure
overcome,
out.
get through, stay alive through, you know, when a whole barrel is, or when a whole boulder is trying to just squish you. But so like they finally get to the room and then he has to go through this maze and not step on the certain tiles so that he doesn't get shot with an arrow. He gets to the thing. He thinks that he swaps the idol out with his little bag of sand, which why was he carrying a bag of sand? But it's fine. So he switches that out, and we realize that that didn't work either. So now he has to run. And just when he thinks that he's safe, he can't
Yeah.
get over the little, I mean, it's not little, the giant hole that he has to jump over. And then once he gets through the door, then the boulder arrives. Once he gets past the boulder, then he's
Yeah.
out and the whole army of indigenous people are there. Like, I love that every time he has a little success, then there's another obstacle that he has to overcome, and
Mm,
another one and another one. And so I think that building upon also helps make this all the more tense, and like you were saying, reveals a lot about who Indiana Jones is as well, because this happens so early in the movie. Like, this is
mm.
one of the first scenes that we get to see Indiana at work. So what a great way to introduce us to this character who is tenacious and intelligent and thinks quick on his feet, but
Yeah.
is also pretty tired and annoyed by the time this is all over, which is very relatable. So I love how all of that combines to reveal more about this protagonist that we come to know and love over the course of this and then many additional movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgotten the part where he emerges out of the tunnel, and it's such a misdirect because we have this moment of triumph. We've escaped the big bad boulder, and immediately danger is right at his fingertips again, and barreling in his face yet again. And so that feeling of false safety, false triumph, like, okay, we made it. No, just kidding, we didn't. I think is really fun. And I feel like it is what the whole movie does actually, which is every time we think that Indy's got it, that he's safety, that he has reached triumph in some form or another, this moment of victory, of this pickle that he's gotten himself in, the next one's right looming at the next curve, and the next turn. So I thought that that was a really great moment. And then there's a very clear power dynamic, I think, that happens in that ending sequence too. So this moment of victory for our protagonist is so quickly dashed because, one, he's covered in cobwebs, so like we are not in a good spot, we are not thriving. But then two, you have Belloc standing over him. I thought the staging of that sequence with him standing over Indy as Indy's kind of crouched and sitting on the ground was such a great like visual indicator of the power dynamic and the tough spot that Indy finds himself in. So I think all of that visually just works really well. And we have no moment to breathe. We like tumble down the hill, barely have a moment to catch our breath, and immediately we're thrown into the next thing. And I feel like that's such a representation of the whole movie and Indiana Jones as a character, as we're constantly seeing him figure out how to weasel his way out of some pickle that he's gotten himself into.
And it's done in such a way that, like, we as the audience don't feel like defeated or
Mm,
fatigued by it. Like, I feel like in some
yeah.
movies, when there's just so many obstacles, you're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, come on. Can't this guy catch a break? But that
Mm,
doesn't happen in this film, and certainly doesn't happen in this scene. So I just, once again, a testament to the editing and the pacing of all of those cuts, and also understanding just how many obstacles we need to be invested and for that to create tension without it being too many that we are then overwhelmed and feel defeated. So I think
mm,
this is really in that happy medium where it's tense and exciting, and we feel empathy for this character who is so smart and so competent and made it through this whole maze and didn't get shot by an arrow or squished by a boulder only to be defeated. So I think it is so good at humanizing him as a character, while also not fatiguing us as the audience.
mm-hmm. And perhaps a way that like the character's written where he's just kind of like, all right, on to the next thing. Like the fact that he's unbothered by it helps us as the viewers feel like, all right, Indy's got it. Like he'll figure out a way. And that's part of the fun and the joy of getting to watch this character just navigate his grand adventure. Yeah, so good. There's one other part that's much shorter than the boulder sequence, but I think actually like employs a lot of the same really great techniques that the boulder sequence does, which is the wall coming down. Uh, that he needs to clear through. He first needs to cross the chasm, then he can clear the wall that's coming down that will trap him in this underground lair. And I think it uses the same tactics as the Boulder chase sequence with, in a great action scene, that sense of time looming and constantly ticking, I think adds so much momentum and forward thrust for any great action sequence. And the way that the pacing of the edits are cut, we really clearly know where we are in time, how close the wall is, how much pressure is Indy under, how many seconds does he have, and that sense of time constantly being present, I think really helps the whole set of action sequences in this film, but especially I think are shown through the wall coming down, which I think is kind of a smaller microcosm of I think what the Boulder chase sequence does. So I loved that bit too, and I wanted to give a shout out for that first debacle that he has to figure out is I need to clear this chasm, and then I need to clear the wall, and that wall barreling down is such a great tactic.
It's so tense. And then of course he can't forget his whip. So then that's another
Gotta go get
little
it.
bit of like
Yes.
humor too after he just clears this whole thing, and we learn his priorities of can't leave without this. It's a very helpful tool. So I get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other shout out that I want to give in this scene is the music.
Oh my
John
gosh.
Williams. My goodness. Uh, the way that music is employed in this film is absolutely incredible. And it does so much to really set the mood and set the stakes. And the whole time, I mean, obviously it's a very tense scene for all of the reasons that we've already talked about. But we hear that as well in the music. And it's just a perfect complement to all of these action bits that this score is also tense and unsettling, but also really exciting at the same time. And I don't know how John Williams does this. He's a freaking wizard. But man, this score is incredible. And this, specifically for this scene, helps
Yeah.
create all of that tension that you're feeling as you're just on the edge of your seat. Like, oh, is Indy going to make it?
Is it gonna make it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how much the alignment of the music and the score to those moments and allowing those moments to feel bigger and more dramatic and for us to lean into the emotions of it are so much more heightened. Like the music moment that the score shining moment that I want to give a shout out to is when Indy's approaching the idol and the tension of the strings and the slowness of that punch and shot just feel like I was holding my breath. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to shoot out at me? And a nod to your point earlier, we've seen the danger of this underground lair and of all of the traps. And so that is looming large as we're hearing the tension in the score, and the camera being really still adds so much to this like breathless moment where we're on edge and anything could happen. Anything could happen. So
Including
good.
a giant boulder. So, you know.
Yep. All right. Well, this is, I mean, my gosh, what an amazing scene. It's really, this one sprung to mind immediately for both of us. So that says a lot, I think, of all of the incredible scenes in this film. And there are so many. This is the one that we felt so excited and passionate to be able to unpack. Well, this was our scene breakdown of the iconic Boulder chase scene from Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Frame by Frame. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know which parts of this scene really stood out to you and really made it so memorable for you as well. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at moviesandUsPod, or email us at moviesandUsPod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on this show and our other show, TVNS. Keep an eye on this feed. We'll be back soon with another Movies and Us review of an upcoming film that's in our docket. So we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see y'all again very soon.